rising up in the clouds, but I've always felt that something's missing. That was until I found you right there in the crowd. You came into my life and started a fire. You made me feel like I could touch the sky. Oh, there's nothing missing now that you're my desire. Now all I have to do is to make you mine. 'Cause I know, and you know what we could be. Like a song, like a perfect melody. Baby, don't say you don't believe in me. 'Cause you know, and I know, we're onto something good. You know, and I know, we got something good.
Hello, how's it going? Bonnie Violet here. I'm a trans femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist, and digital chaplain. And in case you don't know where you are, you found yourself at Say Something Sundays. And today, this is just a time that I go live for about 20 to 30 minutes and speak with, whatever's on my mind. As you may or may not know, I have taken a couple weeks off of this because I was in San Francisco for Pride and doing a number of gigs out there, many of which that are kind of related to this conversation today. So I thought I would, so it is titled, Are You a Christian? Which I'm not necessarily like going to focus just on Christianity, but I do want to talk a little bit about kind of like where my beliefs are and where I stand with certain things potentially. So we'll see how that goes. So thank you so much for joining me. If you do have any questions or comments, you can feel free to post them wherever you're watching, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch Live, or you're listening to a podcast afterwards. I always love hearing from folks. So, are you a Christian was a question that I got asked yesterday. I was meeting with a new drag artist who was looking to get involved and potentially be like a keynote at the Drag and Spirituality Summit, and talked with a little bit about drag and spirituality as far as the podcast goes. And of course, in those conversations, we ask kind of people, what do you believe? I love talking with people of very varied experience and kind of like their point of views on spirituality and what their experience is. For me, whenever I can hear other people talk about their concept, it really kind of expands on mine. Because I don't know about you, but oftentimes I say this, oftentimes God fails me. And it's not really God that fails me. And I use God as just kind of a general term. Please kind of disregard that if it's a bad like word for you. But basically like whatever sort of creator, God, higher power, whatever, that it often fails me. And it's not that it fails me or that fails me, but it's really just my understanding that begins to fail. I don't know about you, but there's often times where I live my life and believing one thing to be true and trusting in this, that, or the other, and then coming to a point in my life where I come to understand that that's just not true in the ways that I had once thought. And so for me, I think when I was younger, I would say like, oh, well, God isn't enough, or like, I don't know, I guess I would place that on God to some degree. Like, because if God is like all powerful and like whatever, all this sort of crap that we think it is at times. And for me, God is kind of the idea of grace. And this, I don't know. Honestly, I'm still figuring out what to believe, what words to say, and what communities to be a part of when it comes to my experience with what I sometimes call the divine. Each individual, like myself, like we all have a spirit. I believe that's, we all have a spirit within us that is ultimately that which like observes our thoughts and animates our body and really kind of pulls us throughout the world. And I think we hear that a lot of the times when you ask, like some people have like their spirits are down or their spirits are up, or, and I think oftentimes I think we spend a lot of time on the mind, and we spend maybe even a lot of time on the body. But I think when we're talking about spirituality, it becomes really difficult because I think religion in a lot of ways has, and religion, I'll say like the big R, and kind of more of a restrictive kind of harmful way. I think religion has really made spirituality and made relationship with our spirit kind of like a taboo thing or a bad thing. For many years we were told that we couldn't even allow spirit or we couldn't allow God. And I think that's part of the problem is like when we think of, for me, when I think of like God as something outside of me, um, that that I think that's when it starts to get a little wonky for me. Like it becomes not enough. For me, I have an experience with this thing that I call God. Um, I and again, it's like I think it's something that maybe we all know and we all connected with at times in our life, or aspired for, or hoped was real or true. And I think like I have to like stop. I keep seeing people coming in and out, so I apologize. I'm getting a little distracted today, but kind of going back to the idea of a Christian. Am I a Christian? And I don't. I I often hesitate to answer that, but my first response is no. I'm not a Christian. However, growing up in the United States, growing up as a Christian, there is a lot in my life and in my culture and in my surroundings and in my habits and my behaviors that reflect what I've come to learn about Christianity. And so it's sometimes really difficult for me to kind of like disconnect myself fully from Christianity because it is such a thick and has been such a thick part of my life. And I think a lot of what I've been trying to do, I think I have a understanding of God or a higher power that actually isn't Christian, but I don't think it's anti-Christian. I think that, for me, my understanding of a higher power or God is that which holds everything and connects all of us, all creatures, the plants, the animals, the humans, and whatever that energy or that life force or that divinity is. Like, I think that's the thing that I am really trying to remember as I move forward in life. For me, spirituality has become just useful. I got to a point in my life where it became helpful to begin to nourish and have an experience with this idea of what spirit and spirituality is. And this idea for me really is just the connectedness, how I'm connected to everyone. And if I really believe that we are all connected, and that my actions will impact the people around me, then it creates a mindfulness and awareness that causes me to be, I think, a little bit different in the world than I was before. There was a time in my life when I never would have said it, but I acted as if like the world was out to get me. I just felt like it was me against the world. It was me against everybody. And that it only took me so far having that belief, because I realized that I could only do so much on my own. And to me, a lot of spirituality or even a higher power is just me plus you, me plus anything. Just that idea of not being alone, and not having to just rely on my own resources or my own knowledge or my own, even like family or friends or, like things that I might even say I already occupy or a part of me. But that there's even more to it than that. And so I think for me, what spirituality, when I'm doing it well, it's a reminder for me, and it's an intention, and it's a default mode, if you will, of like, if I believe these things were to be true, if I believe that we all were connected and that what I did impacted the people around me, and I want to have a positive effect in the world. I want to be loving. I want to be kind. I want to show up in a way that begins to create a world that is more equitable for everyone, that more people can have a better relationship with life and what life has to offer for us. And so, I know that sounds a little like woo-woo or maybe even not super defined. And I probably could, I think work on that. But oftentimes when I talk about this, it's like words aren't enough to really express what I feel, I know deep within. And there's like this knowing that I can't quite fully understand, but there's still kind of this confidence and this comfort most of the time that that there is some sort of connection, there is some sort of purpose, there is some sort of reason why we are here and why we're all here. And I don't know, I think that's something that's still for me. There's so much unknowns, and I think that can be really difficult to kind of live with ambiguity. But I've had to come to see the world from that point of view, to stop seeing everything so black and white and begin to see more variation and grayscale, if you will, or everything in between. And that's even not even thinking like black and white is like the spectrum. There's so many other levels and dimensions and depths of experience, and what I think is ultimately truth. Truth is to some degree relative, but I think a bigger truth is kind of taking into consideration all the truths. And for me, like my mind, I can't understand that, and I can't figure out, like I don't have the capacity to think that like somebody else's truth that might seem contrary to mine is a truth as well as mine. And then there's probably also some other sort of bigger truth or bigger understanding, which for me, I just don't have the capacity for. And for me, I feel like sometimes that's kind of what I can kind of leave up to maybe one day I'll know kind of situation. And I found that when I can have that experience where I don't feel like I already know it all, or I've already experienced it all, or there's nothing more to learn or experience or create, then, I think that it makes things difficult. I often say that when I was younger, like I lacked the imagination. And I still feel like in a lot of ways I lack the imagination of all the possibility that surrounds us, surrounds me. And so, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with all this, to be honest with you. I do identify as a queer chaplain, and chaplaincy is like a Christian term, the thing that I like. And so, and that's really kind of, like it's just what I was rooted on. That's what I was built on. I guess that's been my foundation. And there has been a lot of power for me to come to understand a Christianity and a Christian world in which I can exist as who I am. And so I think chaplains, and one of the things I loved about chaplaincy is that it was not about my spirituality. It wasn't about what I believed. It wasn't about my God or my religion. It was actually more about being with other people as an hopefully unbiased person, to really help people invite God and their understanding of God or their spirit, or to even become aware of the spirit within them as they're going through the process of death and dying, or with somebody who is going through death and dying. And as I've talked with before, I don't necessarily work with people who are physically dying. I feel really intrigued and called, and I like being in between of, for me, I died many times in my life. And it was every time I came to see myself as somebody different. For me, a new identity is a death to an old one. And throughout much of my life, those identities at times didn't allow for either other parts of myself to exist, or even more importantly, it didn't allow me to have God or have a connection with God, or to think that we could be like in the same space or be in relationship with one another. And so that's what I really like, is to really help people understand, again, because I think it's just like even if we want to just get practical and factual, I think there is a spirit within us, period. Whether that's connected to other people, whether that's connected to some greater being, whether that's like all those sorts of things, I don't know. But I do know that when I have a relationship with that which is within me, that isn't just in my mind, that isn't just in my body, that isn't, I don't even think just in my heart. I think maybe it resides there a little bit, but I think even at that, it still also observes my heart. And so I think for me, spirituality is just really seeking a connection, an acknowledgement, an awareness of that. And when I do, again, like I think it's helpful for me to believe that like I just don't have a spirit for me. It's helpful for me. I love the idea that there's a spirit that even connects all of us, because I think when that happens, then it brings out my life being more than my own, and not in the sense of like I get to tell somebody else or like somebody else's life is mine, but just this idea that there's more to it than me. And it's like I can work on the relationship with my spirit and my body and my mind and my heart, but and that kind of in some ways doesn't feel like enough. So like how then do I connect with other folks through spirit, which I believe there's just something that connects us, and I often just feel better and more connected to myself when I can be connected with others in that same way. These say some things are always really kind of who knows what's going to come out of my mouth. Just want to breathe. It's been interesting. There have been a lot of people coming in and out of this particular live. I've had up to 30 people in here, then down to 3, and then back up. And so there's been a lot of fluctuation. So I've really been trying to not let that distract me. But I just want to call it out that it has been a little distracting. If you're watching or listening, I'd love to get a comment from you. I know a lot of folks just listen, and oftentimes you're not in a place where you can respond or try to connect, and so that's okay too. Sometimes it just helps with the prompt. But I've been kind of in this space of, I think because I am a queer chaplain, I preached in church a couple weeks ago on Father's Day. Again, as somebody who is not a Christian, preaching in a Christian church as a drag queen, and I really questioned, I guess, my place there. And I mean, I think the question of my place is I think that's a question that I've been pondering much of my life. Like, where is it that where I land? And oftentimes I think I need to just be more comfortable with like where I do land and just being with that. I'm losing my train of thought. And I still have a little bit longer to go, but I as far as Christianity goes, I'm reluctant still to say that I'm not a Christian, because I think to some degree, if I wanted to filter out my life and my existence, I think I could filter out a Christian lens and be Christian. But I struggle with kind of like wanting to attach myself to that. And then also, really even letting go of that. I get so much from listening to old hymns, or, I find myself going to like church services online, which feels so interesting to me. But I really get a lot out of that, especially when the leadership are trans folks, or Black or Indigenous, or maybe all of those in one. And they are living within a Christian understanding and Christian belief, and seeing that folks can exist in their fullness within an environment that I've felt so restricted by is so interesting to me. And so I think I like to hear and see how that is possible. And yet I think I still struggle to trust that space and that environment. Like most things, it just doesn't seem like enough. Like it doesn't quite hold all the truths that I think I know, or maybe even would like to come to know. But again, I think that's kind of like my own limitation. I've talked about this, I think, a number of times over the years, about just kind of this feeling of like having a hard time like really committing to like a group of people, or a religion or an institution, or even as I think later on in life, maybe jobs I can, because I think I have more of a temporal, is that right? Temporary idea of my relationship with them as I've gotten older. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. And I think that's, for me, God or higher power or that bigger understanding is the only place that I feel like I can go to where everything, every part of me can be present, and that every part of me can be understood and seen and known. And I think I could only maybe potentially believe that that could be possible with something bigger than you or I. Because, you know, I love people, but I also have a really hard time with people. And I know that I am not like always a good person for other people to have in their lives. You know, I don't know how to do life on my own without other people, but also like I've been hurt a lot. You know, it's like as humans, we let one another, we fall short. And so when we're in relation with other people, we're going to fall short with one another. And through that experience, it's just, and I think for me, that's why I need God, or I need something bigger, because I fall short, and it's not falling short of like some sort of like perfection or some sort of it's not even wrong. It's just an inability or a lack of capacity to, I think, to keep it easy, like not cause harm, um, intentional or not. And, you know, I think that comes from, you know, being healed, I guess. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah. So I think for me, the idea or the possibility of there being something more than just us, again, allows me to continue to create and grow and expand and seek something beyond what I already know or have come to experience. Like it helps me to believe or to think that there is just so much more than what I can see, what I can feel, what I can touch, what I can even understand or comprehend. Because otherwise, like, it's just not enough. Is that true? Maybe. I know that's one of the things that I think draws me to the concept of grace. Grace has been a topic of conversation for me within my sermon, within the last Say Something, and just in general in life. You know, grace, if I believe that I already have value and I have worth, and so do you, then I don't, like, if I could really believe that and live into that, and it's like, I believe it. Like, I believe it. I know it to be true. However, I think in looking at my actions and how I live in the world, I'm not living into that belief or that understanding fully for a number of reasons, good, bad, or otherwise. And so for me, again, it's continuing to be able to remind myself. And, you know, I think for me, even a higher power for me is even just a higher power concept or belief or an understanding that I can reach toward, knowing that I might not ever reach it, but that if I were to have grace in this moment, if I were to understand that I can't do anything to make me unworthy, then I can have some compassion for I guess the things that I do that I don't understand or cause harm to myself or others. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I'm going to start kind of like finishing this up. But Say Something Sundays is, again, just an opportunity for me to just kind of share what's on my heart and in my mind and what happens to come out of my mouth. If there's anything you'd love for me to talk more about, or any questions that you have, I would really love to get direction from folks. A lot of the reason why I do this is to try to connect with other people. It's become almost more and more important for me to connect in this way, because it's become harder and harder for me to connect out in the real world. I've just struggled with feeling safe and comfortable. And I know that's just where I'm at in my transition. And so I'm kind of just in this in-between space, and that's okay. And I think it's good for me to have some solitude, I guess, and have some time with myself. But however, connecting with other folks has been super helpful for me as I've gone through life. And it's been a little bit more difficult for me to do in real life. And so this is a great way for me to potentially try to connect with folks. So I often don't feel like, I think oftentimes we feel like we're going through this experience that is so unique and so different and so unlike anybody else, and it is. However, there are similarities, and there are experiences that I've gone through that other people going through with me, or other people have gone through similar things, or things that I can see my own experience in, can be really helpful. And so I just encourage that you reach out and connect with me, whether we get coffee or it's just in the comments or whatever. I'm probably going to keep doing this no matter what. But I'd really love to have more of a conversation than just a speaking to. So anyway, join me next week. I think I will probably do this again. Thanks again for joining me live, if you did, on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch at A Queer Chaplain. Or you can listen to this wherever you listen to podcasts at A Queer Chaplain as well. I wanted to thank my Patreon members. Patreon is a way that you can contribute monthly to the work of A Queer Chaplain. I don't work in the same way as, I don't have regular employment. I never want money to really get in the way of my ability to show up in community and in the world and with other people in a way that's helpful and useful. And so in order to make myself available for that more, I don't have a 60-hour-a-week job, at least as far as you go, clock in, clock out. And so Patreon support and random Venmo contributions or donations of equipment are all welcomed and greatly appreciated. So there's links in the description if you want to find a way to support me or my work. And you can also schedule time to connect with me, either for one-on-one for coffee and conversation, or potentially maybe you want me to speak at your event, or sit on a panel, or preach, or facilitate a group. Just reach out to me. I'm looking for collaborations. And again, I really want to find ways to be of service and of use to my fellows. So take care. Have a wonderful Sunday. Be well, and ta-ta.
I've been waiting all my life for something. I've been down the darkest roads and up in the clouds, but I've always felt that something's missing. That was until I found you right there in the crowd. You came into my life and started a fire. You made me feel like I could touch the sky. Oh, there's nothing missing now that you're mine.